That same night, he concludes dramatically, Mr. Khalil, I made my final decision. In the morning I spoke with my wife, with whom I had 3 sons and a daughter. But as soon as he felt that he was inclined to embrace Islam, he cried and asked the head of the mission. His name was Mr. Shavitz, from Switzerland. He was a very shrewd man. When I asked about my true attitude, I told him frankly what I was doing. I really wanted to, and then he said, "Consider yourself out of work until let's find out what happened to you." So I said, "Here is my resignation." He tried me. I convinced him to postpone it, but I insisted. So he spreaded a rumor among people that I had gone crazy. In this way, I went through a very great test and oppression, even leave Aswan and return to Cairo. When asked about the circumstances of his conversion, he replied, "In Cairo I was introduced to a reputable teacher who helped me get through my serious test, and he did it without knowing anything about my story. He treated me like a Muslim, because I introduced it that way, even though I had not yet officially embraced Islam." Was Dr. Muhammad Abdul Moniam al-Jamal, at the time Under Secretary of the Treasury. Era very interested in Islamic studies and wanted to do a translation of the Quran sacred to be published in America. He asked me to help him because I was fluent in English, since I had obtained my master's degree in an American university. He also knew that I was preparing a study of the Quran, the Torah, and the Bible. We cooperated in this comparative study and in the translation of the Quran. When Dr. Jamal heard that I had resigned from my job in Aswan and that I was unemployed, helped me with a job in a company in Cairo. So I was fine after a short time. I did not tell my wife about my intention to embrace Islam. I thought I had forgotten the matter and that it had all been just a temporary crisis. But I knew full well that my official conversion to Islam required complicated and time-consuming measures. Then it was, in fact, a battle that I preferred to postpone for some time, until I was to establish and complete my comparative study. Mr. Khalil continued, "In 1955 I completed my study and my material and living conditions were well established. I resigned from the company and opened a training office for importing articles, school and stationery stores. It was a successful business that brought me much more money I needed. So I decided to declare my official conversion at the Islam. On December 25, 1959, I sent a telegram to Dr. Thompson, chief of the American mission in Egypt, informing him that he had embraced Islam. When I told my true story to Dr. Jamal, he was completely astonished. When I declared my conversion to Islam, new problems began. 7 of mine former colleagues on the mission tried their best to convince me to cancel my statement, but I refused. They threatened to separate me from my wife and I said, "She is free to do what you want." They threatened to kill me. But when they saw how much I was determined to leave me alone, and sent an old friend who was also a colleague on the mission. He cried a lot in front of me. So I recited the following verses of the Quran, and as they heard what was revealed to the messenger, you see tears welling up in their eyes. Recognize in that the saying, "Our Lord we believe. Register us among the witnesses. And why should we not believe in God and in all that we do? Has come, of the truth, and how should we not aspire that our Lord should make us numbered among the virtuous?" Quran 5-83-8-4. I said to him, "You should have cried in humiliation to God by hearing the Quran and believing in the truth that He knows, but refusal." He got up and left me, since he saw no alternative. My official conversion to Islam was in January 1960. About his wife's attitude and sons, Mr. Khalil replied, "My wife left me and took with her all the furniture in our house. But all my children joined me and embraced Islam. The most enthusiastic among them is mine eldest son, Isaac, who changed his name to Osman, then my second son Joseph and my son Samuel, whose name is Jamal, and my daughter Mahida, who now it is called Najwa. Osman is now a doctor of philosophy and works as a professor at the Sorbonne University in Paris, teaching Oriental studies and psychology. He also writes in Le Monde, regarding my wife, she left the house for 6 years and agreed to return in 1966 as long as he could maintain their religion. I accepted, because in Islam there is no compulsion in religion. I told her, I don't want you to become a Muslim because of me, but because she is convinced. She now feels that she believes in Islam, but cannot declare it. This is out of fear for her family. We treat her like a Muslim and she fasts on the Ramadan because all my children pray and fast. My daughter Najwa studies at the Faculty of Commerce, Jose is a pharmacist and Jamal is engineer. During this period, since from 1961 to the present time, I have been able to publish several books on Islam and Islam. The methods used by the missionaries and Orientalists to attack him. Now I am preparing a comparative study on women in the 3 religions with the aim of highlighting the position of women in Islam. In 1973 I did the Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, and I do activities of preaching Islam. Do seminars at universities and charities. I received an invitation from Sudan in 1974, where I did many seminars. My time is all used in the service of the Islam. Finally, asked about the characteristics of Islam that most caught his attention, Mr. Khalil answered, my faith in Islam arose through the reading of the Holy Quran and the biography of the Prophet Muhammad, who mercy and blessings of God be upon him. I don't believe in the misconceptions against Islam, and I am especially attracted to the concept of unity of God, which is the most important characteristic of Islam. God is one. Nothing compares to him. This belief makes me the servant of God alone and no one else. The oneness of God frees man from bondage to any being human, and that is true freedom. I also really like the norm about forgiveness in Islam and the direct relationship between God and his servants. Say, O my servants, who have gone too far against themselves, do not despair of the mercy of God. Certainly, he forgives all sins, because he is the forgiving, the most merciful. And return, contrite and submit to him before the punishment comes to them, for then you will not be helped. Quran 39-53 5-4